This is Join Us in France episode 207. Bonjour, I'm Annie, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we talk about France, its many quirks, its history, its language, and of course, destinations in France you want to learn about because, well, hopefully, you'll be visiting soon. On today's episode, a conversation with Elyse that I recorded a few weeks ago, before my voice went out, about Cassis, the Calenques, and enjoying the beach in Provence. When we recorded the episode, Elyse had just visited the area, so she has great recommendations for your own trip to Provence. If you're interested in Cassis and Provence, you should also check out episode 204 about the Vaucluse, 66 about Arles, 65 about the Pont du Gard, 33 about Aix-en-Provence, 150 about the Luberon, and 37 about Marseille. We've done a lot of episodes about Provence. Show notes and photos for this episode are on joinusinfrance.com/207, the number 207. So I haven't been talking into a microphone in forever, it feels like. I skipped a week because of the tour, and then I skipped another week because of bronchitis. I don't think I've ever had bronchitis, and so I didn't know that it would do such a number on my voice, but I'm on the mend, thankfully. The tour was fabulous. Elyse and I got to go around the Dordogne with wonderful people from California, Colorado, and Michigan, and we had a great time. Favorites on the tour were Lascaux. Lascaux 4 is just an amazing experience. We loved also the Josephine Baker Chateau. What a woman she was. The Bénac Chateau, a defensive chateau. The medieval shelters that you can see all over the Dordogne. We stayed at a great chateau hotel. Anyway, we had Bergerac wine. We had lovely food. It was a wonderful week. And several of you have asked about doing another Dordogne tour with me and Elyse, so I decided we would do it again late September 2019. It's all planned out. You can already reserve your spot by going to addictedtofrance.com and looking at the tours and putting down a deposit. There is only one thing I don't like about doing those tours, and it's the selling part. So I decided to simplify the selling part. The September 2019 Dordogne tour is on sale between now, which is October 10th, 2018, and Boxing Day 2018. So you won't be able to buy it after December 26, 2018. If it fills up, it'll be a go. And if it doesn't fill up, I'll refund your deposit. And anyone who wanted to come on the tour will get their money back and we'll call it off. So you have exactly 11 weeks to make up your mind if you want to do this tour or not. We need 6 people exactly. Not 5, not 7, 6 people. Fewer people and we can't pay the expenses of the tour, and more people and we don't fit in the van. So last time this tour sold out within a week because, the Dordogne is just fabulous. And it's so much easier to do with locals that will take care of all the details, There's lots of small windy roads. There's lots of opening times and closing times and details that you need to worry about, which are not a problem for me because I'm a local, but it's a big problem for most people. So I hope this tour will sell out quickly again. And if not, well, you get your deposit back and it's called off by Boxing Day. So that leaves plenty of time to make arrangements one way or the other. All the details, the dates, the itinerary, the price, all of that is on addictedtofrance.com, and I will put a link on the show notes for this episode as well. I'm really, really proud of the tour we put on because it's not like all the other tours. It's very human. It's very personal. It's the full experience. We don't rush you. We look for things that will make your day and will enhance your experience of France. And we can only know that when we get to know you personally. we're not talking to a big blob of 50 tourists in a bus and rushing them along to the next place. We don't do that. Even the restaurants that we go to, they love having small groups show up because, it's easier to deal with. You know, they will talk to us, they'll joke with us. When you go pay the bill, because the way it works is we all pay our own bills, so we all get up and go pay at the cash register. Usually the proprietor will say, hey, this is a nice group of people, bring them again, please. The same is with the hotels. They all say, bring these people again, they're lovely. So I like to see happy visitors, and so do they. So it's good for everybody else. We're making a couple of improvements on the tour based on the feedback we got from this group. First, next time, all of us will stay in the same hotels. I've selected them for you. All you need to do is book it on their website and make the choices you want as far as bed arrangements and all of that. These tours tend to attract sets of friends, and maybe you don't mind sharing a bed, which will save you a couple of bucks. Maybe you do mind sharing a bed. Maybe you're coming by yourself. It's all fine. The hotel website will show you all of these options. And maybe you're coming with your spouse, which happens. It happened on this tour as well. The second thing is that tour members asked for more time to practice their French, which I didn't realize was something they wanted to do. But we had a group of people who were really hoping to practice their French. So next time, this is the way we're going to set it up. I mean, I'm French, so talking French is normal to me. Like, I'd rather do that than English. I have to think less, and I make fewer mistakes in French than I do in English. So on this next tour, those who want to speak French will sit with me around the table, and those who want to speak English will sit with Elyse. And that way, everybody gets to speak their favorite language. So it won't be a language tour per se. We're not going to sit down and do classes and stuff, but you'll get plenty of conversation practice, everyday conversation practice, which is what most people need most when they're learning a new language. So enough said. To book this great tour, go to addictedtofrance.com and click on the tours tab. I'll put links in the show note. I'll bring it up many, many times in the Facebook group between now and Boxing Day. And we hope you check it out and join us in France for real. And now on with the episode about Cassis and the Calenques in Provence and lovely beach spots. Hello, Elyse.
Hello, Annie.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Feels like a long time since we did a podcast
We
together.
haven't recorded one in a long time. Well, of course, I stopped putting out episodes in August. Most of July and August.
Vacation.
Well, it was vacation, but I also was doing a lot of other things on the website, which are thankfully done.
And they look beautiful.
Thank you. Yes, it's pretty good. I'm happy with the result, at least.
And you did do a lot of work.
Yeah, yep. So today we are talking about a lovely place just east of Marseille.
Yes, we're going to talk about actually 2 or 3 little places, all of them along the coast just east of Marseille.
And they are
Cassis or Cassis. Depends on whether you're from the north or the south of France.
Yeah, do they say Cassis locals or do they say Cassis?
They don't. They say Cassis.
I say Cassis.
Everybody here says Cassis.
Okay.
And then just east of that, a town that has very interesting history and is really kind of neat called La Ciotat.
Yeah.
And then east of that, following a little bit along the coast, another town named Bandol, which is actually very famous for its wines. And I'm going to add in a little bit of a last little thing, a village that's up in the hills, very close by, that I visited. I did all of this 10 days ago.
Oh, well, there you go. It's fresh.
10 days ago, yes. Wish I was back there, actually. And it's a lovely little area. It's the beginning, basically, of the Riviera or the Côte d'Azur, whichever one you want to call it, which is the entire coast that goes basically from Marseille to Nice. And there's a lot of it, and there's lots of coves, and there's lots of little peninsulas and beautiful, beautiful spots along the way.
Yeah.
But this is one small little part of it.
And so this village, you didn't name it yet.
It's Castellet.
Castellet.
Yes.
Okay. I have not been to that one. I've been to the others, not that one.
And it's one of the first times I've actually visited one of the towns that's up in the hills. That's not that far from the coast. You can actually see the coast, the sea from up there. But it was lovely and a walled, ancient little village. So I'll just mention a few things about it.
Very nice. Very nice.
Thanks to my friend. That's how I found out.
Right. You have a
about
friend who lives
in Marseille.
there. Yes.
Yes. And so I usually do an annual visit with her.
Mm-hmm.
And this time I said to her, let's do something a little bit different. And she said, well, I've been to a couple of these villages up in the hills. It's actually surrounded by vineyards and things like that.
Ah.
And I said, oh, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of really nice days of visiting in the area.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Very good. Well, do tell, Elyse. Do tell.
Do tell. Well, I think most people know, but maybe some people don't, that, of course, Marseille is a very, very, very big city on the Mediterranean. And it's basically just to the east of where the Rhone River opens up and opens out into the sea.
Right.
You know, it's a huge city. It's now considered to be the second biggest city in France. Mm-hmm. And physically, it's enormous.
Right.
It's really gigantic. I mean,
it takes up a lot of space.
It takes up a lot of space. Coming from Toulouse, which is really considered to be a relatively big city, but is not because it's relatively flat. And so you don't get a sense of how big it is because it's kind of spread out in a suburban kind of way. Marseille, which is built on hills, and which has certain points of view where you get to see how big it is, it's rather impressive.
Yeah.
And if you go to, and interestingly enough, Marseille, this is something that it's taken me a long time to sort of get set in my head in terms of orientation. It's a city that is oriented along the coast north to south. It's not east to west. It's actually on a section of the coast of the Mediterranean that is a north-south, almost a vertical axe. So when you get to the southern edge of Marseille, which happens to actually be where this friend of mine lives, you enter into the area that's called the Calenques.
The Calenques, yes.
The Calenques. And the Calenques is a limestone, it's actually a combination of limestone cliffs and coves. Mm-hmm. That are beautiful.
Right, and we've talked about it on another episode. I can't tell you the number, but if you search on joinusinfrance.com, you will find lots of episodes where we mention the Calenques.
The Calenques. And I actually went and looked it up in the dictionary to make sure of the exact definition, and it is very specific to this idea of these very beautiful limestone cliffs, which of course are cut out of ancient seas, and these very narrow, deep coves. And it's famous for this area.
And it's gorgeous.
It's absolutely gorgeous. The water is just magnificently, if there's sand underneath, it's turquoise. Otherwise, it's magnificent blue. It's very beautiful, very clean. And these cliffs, most of them have trails that you can walk on. So if you go out from Marseille, obviously with a car, you can do some of this kind of excursion actually with a bus.
There's some public buses that will take you to the Calenques. Right. Yes, but I think I researched that for one of the episodes. Yeah, in one of the show notes for one of the episodes, I actually tell you exactly how to get to the Calenques by bus.
Calenques.
Yeah,
so you can do that. There are two ways of getting from there to Cassis, which is the next town over. Mm-hmm. You can either take the car along the road that really goes along the edge, which is what we did, which is absolutely fabulous.
Pretty,
but you shouldn't have vertigo if you're going to do that. Really, because there are a couple of spots when it's like you're looking almost straight down into the water. It's absolutely gorgeous, or you can get on the highway. There is a big highway that cuts a little bit further inland and will take you there. And you drive, I'm not sure if I even wrote down how many kilometers it is, but let's say it's about 10 miles from...
Yeah.
I'd say it's about 10 miles at the most from the southern end of Marseille to Cassis.
Right.
And Cassis is famous, and it's famous for its Calenques.
Right.
It has several, which are absolutely splendid. And of course, the town which originally was a fishing port, and which has now become a very, very important tourist attraction because of the Calenques, but also because of their wines.
Yes, and the city of Cassis is really pretty too. I mean,
it's very pretty.
You could easily spend a day enjoying the port area and walking around, and the gastronomy locally is very nice.
It's very nice.
And those Calenques you were talking about driving or taking a bus, but you can also discover them by boat.
Yes.
From the port in Cassis, you can hire, you have groups that, you pay $20 or whatever. I can't remember how much it is, but we did that. And of course, it's lovely and gorgeous, but most of those boat rides, you can't get off of the boat.
No, you can't.
They just take you back. So if you hire a smaller boat that's not for 100 people, then but you'll pay a lot more for that.
You'll pay a lot more money for it.
Yeah.
You can also actually there are excursions from Marseille that go to the Calenques of Cassis.
There you go.
And you can actually, what happens if you take one of those boats is that they will take you into a couple of the coves in so that you get it's very incredibly impressive vertical view of them. But if you want to, you have two options. If you are a good walker and you're not afraid of the fact that I've done this quite a few times, not recently, but you can walk out. The thing about the Calenques at Cassis is that they're actually a national park.
Yes.
And so they have very nice walking trails that come from the Pinède, which is where you have pine trees, where people usually go first. And you can walk, and they have signs that indicate which of the Calenques you're going to.
Right.
And you can actually work your way all the way up to the top, and you can look down, or you can get to one of the coves, and I've actually done that, and you can go swimming.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful.
It's kind of steep, though.
Well, the coves are they're actually little beaches. They're beaches, so you can get to the actual beach part and swim. However, you have the currents. The water's relatively fresh because it's
cool. You mean?
And because these are. It's the equivalent, of course, in the south of a fjord in the north. But what happens is that the current is pretty rugged, and it pushes back and forth. So I know this from...
You have to be a good swimmer.
You have to be a good swimmer.
Yeah.
You can wet yourself because it gets really hot. But the nicest thing to do actually is if you have a little boat, you can actually go swimming off your boat. But again, you have to be a good swimmer.
Yeah.
But it's gorgeous. It's This is white limestone. It's brilliant. It's blindingly white and incredibly gorgeous.
And I'll put some pictures of that. I took lots of pictures when I was in Cassis myself. So I don't put so many pictures on the website anymore, but I do put them on the Pinterest boards for the show. So if you look up Join Us in France and you follow on Pinterest, you'll find some pictures. I have a board on Provence that will have pictures of that.
And Cassis is, interestingly, I did a little bit of research. Cassis has been known since the Roman times.
That whole area has been developed for a long time.
But the other towns are much more recent. I mean, Marseille is, of course, originally was created as a colony by the Greeks.
Yeah, that's even older than the Romans.
It's even older. It's really one of the oldest established settlements.
It's the oldest city in France, Marseille. I think that's what it's known for.
I don't know if it was considered a city. It was actually a commercial comptoir.
Yeah.
The Greeks settled a little bit of a commercial exchange center there. And then, of course, when the Romans came through, they basically took it over.
Yeah.
But the name comes from the ancient Greek name for it. But what I didn't know was that the Romans had settled Cassis as a port separate from Marseille. And one of the things they started to develop, believe it or not, was the wine. So the wine in Cassis, which is extremely interesting because it's there are 2-3 places, and one of them is this other town I mentioned, Bandol. The wine production is not enormous. It's certainly much less well-known outside of the country of France, but the wines are really excellent and expensive.
Yeah, they're pretty expensive,
They're
I thought.
expensive, yes. And in Cassis...
I mean, by expensive, we mean...
Well, for us...
20 and up.
Yes, that's expensive.
That's expensive.
That's expensive. For us, that's expensive. I mean, I know for people in other countries, they
in America,
yeah. When you and I buy a bottle of wine for 20 euros, it's really a lot of money.
It better be special.
It better be special. And they're very, very, very well rated as wines.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I noticed, because my friend is very interested in wine also, so we went to a couple of these cavis to see the selection of wines that they had.
Yeah.
They're starting to have a lot of organic wines too, which is very interesting because it's not a huge percentage of wine at this point that really has turned organic, but they have excellent rosé and excellent white.
Right.
That's the 2 wines that you really get a lot of in
And the
Cassis.
reason why there's more and more organic is because French people want more and more organic products of every sort.
But so it's typical along the coast in general, which means really typical for the whole rest of the Riviera, which is that the town built up around the port. So the oldest part and its most charming part is the promenade, where you have the little restaurants and the shops.
Yeah.
And then you have the boats, and there are still some fishing boats, although not as many as there used to be. But Cassis, of course, has developed enormously, so that you have a real city now. When you leave the little old port area, you basically see lots of luxury houses and luxury apartment complexes, because Cassis is basically for upper class people to live in.
Yeah,
it's not
an
a poor
expensive place.
Town.
Yeah. That's why it's funny to me when it's portrayed as a fisherman's village.
Yeah.
Well, it hasn't been a fisherman's village for a
very
long time.
No.
So don't think you can, And the other thing I have to warn you about with Cassis is that it's in the summer, it's impossible to get around in a car.
Yes.
It's very hard. So this is the kind of place where you really, if you came by car, make sure your hotel has a spot for you to park your car, and then don't use your car while you're there. Plan on walking or using public transportation or something, because parking close to the water, for instance, is almost impossible.
It's almost impossible.
Unless you go on a rainy day in the winter where there's, nobody's going. It's really hard to park close to most of the attractions.
And I know from experience, this is going back a number of years, that a lot of people, for instance, who are from Marseille or even from Aix-en-Provence, which is further inland, in the spring, as soon as the weather starts being really nice, which of course is much earlier there than it is in some other parts of France, they head for Cassis. And they head for the coast, and it is unbelievably crowded.
Yeah, it's very busy.
It's very, very, very busy.
It's beautiful. That's why.
It's very beautiful. But I have to say that because of that, I was interested in going beyond it to see what other towns are like further up, because what happens is it's victim of its own success.
Right.
It really is.
Like a lot of places on the Riviera, really.
Yes.
It's so it attracts so many people that after a while you're like, oh, we can't get in to eat where we want. We can't park. We can't. The beach is crowded.
And some of the places really are now overpriced because of that reputation that it has. But it's beautiful, and for those people who are able to do some walking or hiking, it is one of the most wonderful experiences is to walk up the Calenques and really come out where you're almost at the edge and looking out over the sea.
And if you do
magnificent.
that, follow the signs.
Yes.
People get lost in the Calenques all the time. So just follow the path and follow the signs. And that is all I'm going to say about that.
And wear grip non-skid shoes, because
no flip-flops.
The stones from wear and tear from so many people, the limestone has reached the point where it's so slippery,
It's
even
very
on a
smooth.
dry day. It's very smooth.
Yeah.
So you have to really have goat feet to be able to handle it. Yeah. One other thing about the wines, which is one of the things I discovered, the etiquette or the label of AOC, which we have talked about, which is very important in terms of labeling.
Appellation d'origine contrôlée.
Contrôlée. First one was Cassis, 1936.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
And that means that the people who produce wine around there keep an eye on one another, that nobody is going to bring in truckloads of cheap grapes from some other place to mix with their wine, which is had been a problem at times with French wine production years ago. I mean, this doesn't happen so much anymore.
No.
But they really had to police, when did you say?
1936.
36. So this is an old concern of theirs that they want to control the quality of the wine. And so they do that by, I mean, if you go just west a little ways, you can find the cheapest grapes in the world.
That's right.
You know, and so, they don't want people mixing that in.
They don't want the mixing in. No.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. Apparently, there were 3 different places in France, and that was one of them that received the first AOCs in 1936.
Yeah.
So there's another thing I just wanted to mention, because it's a place that I've always been fascinated by, but unfortunately you cannot visit unless you are a professional deep sea diver. And that is the Cave of Cosquer. Cosquer, actually. Cosquer. Pronounced Cosquer, pas Cosquer. Cosquer. And it is, in fact, a fabulous story. In the time of the Romans and prior to that, the sea was much further out. The land, there was more land. And because there are lots of professional divers that live and work around that area that go looking for treasure, they do a lot of deep sea diving in general, looking for gold and whatever,
Yeah, because a lot of boats have sunk.
Booties, the booty, whatever, the goods, right? Pirates, there were several of these deep sea divers who had found a strange cave underwater. And I don't know when was the very first time that they actually saw the cave, but several people tried to go into it. And if I'm not mistaken, even one person died because it was so deep that they couldn't figure out how far in it went. And so they never ventured further than a certain level, whatever. And then in 1996, I don't know the name of the diver, but with a special equipment and a special team, they went inside and went all the way to the end and discovered a cave that has more paintings on it than Lascaux.
Paintings?
Yes.
Underwater, and they're
prehistoric.
Still
there.
Still with the water?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, so the paintings must be above water.
They were above water. There was an air pocket.
Okay.
And they knew by other things that historically written
Spell
things.
That again? I haven't
Cosquer.
Okay, I will look it up.
And so they knew that the land had come out much further at the time of it. In fact, I don't remember if I wrote it down how many kilometers, but it's a couple of kilometers difference, And so they were able to take pictures of it underwater. And there are these books that show what it looked like. It was absolutely
amazing,
gorgeous.
Amazing.
Absolutely gorgeous. But what's really interesting and sort of strange or disappointing is that they've never made a museum. They've never done anything except make this book about it.
Well, they don't really want people going in there.
Well, you can't go in. I mean, I don't think I don't even think you're allowed, even if you're a professional deep sea diver. I think there's some kind of
permits.
But you'd think that on the land, because it's right to the west of Cassis. It's like if you leave the last Calenques of Marseille and you go along the way, it's just as you're about to enter into Cassis. And so they knew that because there are all these underground caves with the limestone cliffs and everything.
Yeah.
So I've seen the book that has some of these drawings and things in it, and it's absolutely amazing. And so, of course, one of the things that really tells people is that there were probably many, many, many caves like this.
Oh, probably,
that go back to 20,000 years ago, or maybe even older.
Yeah, because some of the caves further up the Rhône River.
Right, the Chauvet.
La Grotte de Chauvet, that's 40,000.
Yep.
So Lascaux is 20,000
Right.
years old. Chauvet is 40,000
Right.
years old.
And so I think they think this is more or less the same time period as a pretty much Lascaux.
Okay.
They usually judge by the style, by the kinds of animals that are shown and things like that. But it's actually a fabulous story, you know. And
Never heard of it.
I don't know if they've ever even made a film about it, because I know that a German filmmaker named Werner Herzog
Right.
has made the film about Chauvet.
Right.
Where he was allowed in.
Which you can't go
which
into
you can't
either.
go into either, but he was allowed special equipment to go in with the special cameras on these long
But
extended
hang on,
things.
Chauvet, you can go in a reproduction.
Yes,
There's
now
a
there's a
reproduction.
reproduction.
Yeah.
But he made a film about the original that
Yeah.
you can actually rent and see what it looks like.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody has ever done the same thing with Coscar, the Coscar cave. And I don't know if it's because it's just so hard, because it's so deep inside, you know, because it's not just that it's deep down, it's that
the diving makes everything more complicated.
the diving makes everything more complicated. So it's kind of a neat story,
Yeah,
because
it's cool.
It indicates that there was human life there and activity for a very, very, very long
yeah.
time.
That we
and
know
these
for
were
sure.
people probably who ate a lot of fish.
Probably. Probably.
They lived on the coast, you know, and like knowing that the Romans tended to settle where there was already a settlement. My guess is that this is a place that goes back very, very, very far.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So it's just kind of a neat story.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So when you leave Cassis, you continue going a little further east,
Yep.
and it's about another. Well, actually, I don't know. It's 31 kilometers from Marseille. So I would say it's probably another 12, 13 kilometers from Cassis.
Yep.
You get to the city, small city of La Ciotat,
Yep.
which is built around an enormous bay. Unlike Cassis, which is just a little bit of a cove in the
small
Calenques. La Ciotat is an enormous bay with a piece that comes out that's, I guess you could say, is like a small peninsula, and that's called Cap Canaille.
Right.
And its cliffs are 390 meters high. And it's very impressive, because when you
That's
go
high.
it's high. And when you go further east and you're on the coast, on the beach, and you look back, it sticks out. It's like this it's like a head that comes out high up above, and then it just drops right into the sea. And La Ciotat, which actually comes from the word in Provençal meaning the city,
Right.
because this was part of the kingdom of the Counts of Provence for centuries and centuries and centuries, was very famous for being the site of one of the most important shipbuilding industries in France. And this is for several centuries. There were enormous amounts of shipbuilding there. And then because of World War I and World War II, when they had to move things south, particularly around World War II, it became an extremely important and very strategic place for shipbuilding. And it stayed a very active place until the 1980s. And for reasons I really don't know, pretty much all of the industrial shipbuilding stopped, closed down. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people left. It was, for a very long time, a working class city. It has a very, very cute and charming old section that goes along the port, which is on one side of the Gulf. But it was pretty much working class. And then, like with many places along the coast in the south, starting in the late 1990s, retired people wanting to go south discovered La Ciotat and turned it into a city that is now a city that people go to live. And so it has a very, very large population of people who are young retired people, and brought in other activity. And now the shipbuilding has turned to yacht making. So it doesn't employ as nearly as many people as it did in the past, but because of the affluence of people from every country in the world wanting to go to the Riviera, France is probably one of the most important countries in the world for shipbuilding. And most of it now for the big things is Saint-Nazaire, which is on the Atlantic coast.
And that's the Royal Caribbean ships.
That's the Royal Caribbean ships. That's when they fixed up Queen Elizabeth. This is the biggies. The real biggies are there. But it turns out that La Ciotat has become the place for yacht building. So obviously that's not why we went there. We went there because it's very quaint.
You weren't buying a boat?
No.
A yacht?
No, but let's talk about just for a second, because I'm not a boater particularly, but knowing a few people and having met a couple of people this summer who own even like 7-8 meter sailboats.
Yep.
The prices of boats is like mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And once you get past your little chug with a little motor, we're talking about big money. And when you see, and when we were driving, we stopped there, and you see these yachts. These things have cost millions, absolutely millions. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But what has happened is that it has given life back to La Ciotat and has really made it a very charming city. And now I'm not talking about the outskirt areas, which move up into the hills, which is basically just modern houses and apartments with shopping centers and stuff like that. But the stretch along the water, and the water there itself is absolutely gorgeous, and the stretch that has the old city is wonderful for these little restaurants, much less expensive than Cassis.
Oh, that's good to know.
Wonderful little places that have fish and, your grilled sardines and, all the stuff that I love. And also there are wonderful excursions you can take out from La Ciotat that take you back to Cassis, to the Calenques, and as far as the Calenques in Marseille. And I've done that. And it's really beautiful, absolutely beautiful to leave from there, go west.
And this is just a guess. I don't know if it's true or not, but are there fewer American visitors in La Ciotat than you get in Cassis?
Probably, for sure. That's a ridiculous thing to say, but probably. I don't know how many people even know about La Ciotat unless you're just interested in stopping on each place along the way and discovering.
This
what
is
it's
a place
like,
where French people normally go.
This is a place where
French people. But
yes, middle and upscale. It's not nearly as upscale as Cassis.
Yeah,
which is what makes it kind of nice.
Yeah,
it's really
so probably hotels are a little bit less expensive.
And you can even rent little apartments and houses. And there's a part that's still a little bit of a fishing port, and you can go from there. It's so easy to take your car if you have a car and go on little excursions and go visit the area around there, or by boat. And it's turned into it's big now.
Honestly, having driven in that part of France, if I have my druthers, I would do it by boat. I would park my car and then do it by boat.
Well, you can't do everything by boat.
No.
But just to give you an idea, I mean, I realize this is a big difference in a time difference, but in approximately 1800, there were 6,000 people, more or less, in La Ciotat.
Yeah.
In 2015, there were 35,000.
Yeah. Well,
and it's expanding all the time.
Yeah.
And in fact, just as a perfect example, this friend of mine was thinking maybe she wanted to leave Marseille, but she lives in a nice part of Marseille. She lives near the Calenques, and was maybe get a better deal by moving towards La Ciotat, and discovered that in fact the prices now, because there's such a demand for it, are exactly the same as in Marseille. So that takes care of that.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's interesting about the history of La Ciotat is that it is the home of the first cinema ever opened in 1895, because the Lumiere brothers, who I think, imagine that was really their name, the Lumiere brothers.
That was
really their name.
Yeah.
And who invented cinema. And of course, if those of you out there don't know, Lumiere means light, so it's just amazingly appropriate, right? They opened a cinema there called the Eden.
But they weren't from there.
But they went down there because of the light. And it turns out that one of the first things they filmed now we're talking about films that probably lasted about 10 minutes, was a game of pétanque. Or boule, whichever way you want to call
pétanque,
it.
Boule,
Pétanque, boule.
Yeah.
And it was closed in the 1980s and has recently been restored and reopened.
Wow.
So you can go to La Ciotat and go to the oldest ever cinema.
Interesting.
Because of course we know that cinema was invented by the French in France. But what I didn't know was that this was a place where they came to do some experimentation. And also they like to film the boats coming in and going out.
Right, because the light is so good there. Yeah, even in the evening when you get this beautiful evening kind of sunset light, golden hour is what it's called. There's enough of it. You know, like if you tried to do this in Normandy, your film, especially the original early film,
right.
You know, it would be so dark you would see nothing.
Right.
But if you do it in La Ciotat, hey, you get a nice image.
Right. And to know that there is a train that goes from Marseille, stops in Cassis, stops in La Ciotat, and then goes to every one of the towns along the way. Mm-hmm. So you can actually do this by train. By train. And in fact, I just realized, I'm looking at my notes, that one of the very first films that the Lumiere brothers made was titled "Train Arriving in La Ciotat."
There you go.
There you go.
How exciting!
How exciting!
Hey, I'd go see that today just to see, you know, what they could film.
There was, I don't know if it's still there. There's some place in the Orsay Museum where at some point, maybe it was connected to a specific exhibit, I don't remember anymore, where they had one of their earliest films showing, and of course it's, you know, very scratchy, black and white, and it's kind of cute, but you know, I mean, this is the beginning, you know, just the beginning.
Oh, and the moving image. I mean,
the moving image. You know.
Photography wasn't that old, you know.
No.
So cinematography, oi.
Exactly, and you know, I mean, look what it's become. You know?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of neat. I love that area anyway. So if we keep going east, you get there are a couple of little towns, and it gets a little quieter. That is, before you get to the next big touristy town, you have a couple of little towns that are very sweet. They're really nice. That have very small little port old house areas that are along the water, but the advantage of them is that they have beaches. Now, not big beaches and deep beaches like you have along the Atlantic or along the coast closer to Narbonne, which is you know, big beaches,
long sandy beaches
that are deep. You know, you just don't have. But it's a relatively nice area, and one of these little towns is called Saint-Cyr, Cyr. Mm-hmm. And it's charming.
But it's probably a rocky beach, right?
No, because that's actually where we went. Oh. And there's a little town next to it called Les Lecs.
Spell, please.
Lecqueus.
Okay.
And there was a lovely beach that was, well, I really have no sense of distance, but let's say at least a half a kilometer long.
Huh.
Sandy, beautiful sandy beach. The water was lovely. I went into the water. It was really warm.
That's good.
I mean, compared to the Atlantic, it was like going into my bathtub.
Right, because you went to the Atlantic.
I went to the Atlantic where it was 20 degrees in the water. And I was
You froze.
And I froze. So this was like, really? Oh, I think I just went into my bathtub, you know? I'm not used to the Mediterranean anymore, especially at the end of the summer when it really gets warm, you know?
Yeah.
Well, you're used to it because of down in Spain, you know about that. So it was really lovely to go swimming in this in the water at this beach, and of course,
was it really packed?
No, because it was already the very last few days of August.
Okay, so
it wasn't packed,
right?
Because it was most of the people who have kids that are school age have already gone home.
Yeah.
So there were lots of couples with little children. And a few older people. It was not one of those beaches where you just see old people, you know.
Yeah.
And it was fine. It was just enough to say there are a lot of people and not feel packed at all. You know, I mean, there was space between everybody, you know.
Right.
But these are not beaches that are extremely deep. So it's nice that it's long. And
right, because they can feel crowded sometimes.
They can feel very crowded.
Because they're kind of shallow.
Yes. And these are all beaches, which of course are similar to Villanova in Spain. These are beaches that have immediately a road and shops and cafes on the other side.
Right. So there's like a boardwalk, but it's not board. It's a street.
No, but this was actually very, very lovely because San Cyr had the equivalent of a boardwalk, and then it had the street sidewalk. So I was very impressed. I'd never been there before, but I thought, well,
it was pleasant.
It was very, very pleasant, and it was really nice. And you could see from there, the head of Cap Canaille.
That's pretty.
La Ciotat.
Yeah.
So that was very impressive because it just curves all the way around and out into the bay.
Yeah.
So it was really nice little discovery to
and we have lots
there.
of listeners who like to go visit these places with children, with families. So yeah, that's a really good recommendation.
And also these beaches are beaches that have a part that is just regular beach and then a part where you can pay for a chaise longue, and then get your little thingies taken care of, I mean, it's a combination kind of beach,
Well, it always is in France. I mean, often is.
Well, not in Brittany.
Well, yeah, but nobody goes to the beach in Brittany
Sure
except for
they do.
Breton.
Yeah, no. People,
You have to be Breton to go there.
No, you have to have grown up to going there. And then you think that the other water is...
Too hot.
I won't even say the word for it.
Yeah.
But really, it's very civilized. Let's put it that way. It's very civilized. It was very, very nice, and really, we drove around because we actually got lost, and suddenly we realized we were in a very nice area because. The houses are a little bit older. I mean, this is not super old, but it was lots of trees and greenery, and it wasn't as built up as the parts of Ciotat or of Cassis, So I thought, what a nice little discovery.
Yeah.
And again, all of these follow one another, so you can actually take a little choo-choo train and sort of go to them and not have to worry about it. And then from there, although the truth is, we did it the other way around.
Now, hang on. A choo-choo train? You mean like a tourist train?
No, in other words, there's a local train as opposed to the big fast train that will make only 3 or 4 stops between Marseille and Nice.
So did you do it by train or did you do it by car?
No, but we could have.
Okay.
Except that we wanted to go up into the hills. So we didn't. But in fact, because I took the train to Marseille,
right,
I realized that in the train station at Saint-Charles in Marseille, they were making an announcement, and they were announcing the train that goes to all of these little stops.
Oh, okay.
So I realized that, this is something you can do.
They do go to all these little stops.
So if my friend ever moved to one of these other little towns,
you could still go.
I could still get there. I wouldn't have to worry about it. She wouldn't have to drive all the way into Marseille to pick me up.
That's good.
But then if you continue a little further east, you get to the city. Again, these are small cities, but still cities of Bandol, Bandol, which is in fact just about 40 kilometers east of Marseille. So we're not talking about huge distances here.
No.
Really, altogether. And Bandol is famous for its wine. And it is a very expensive wine.
Again, 20 and up?
20 and up. A much bigger production than in Cassis, but it is a particularly prized wine. And what is really famous in Bandol is their rosé.
Right.
Their whites and their rosé. Although I didn't know until we went into this big, the Cassis, who has all of the chateau, that they do also have reds. And we tasted one, and it was really quite nice. It was really quite nice. And the Bandol wines, I suppose that's true of Cassis, but even more so, the vineyards for the Bandol wines go all the way up into the hills, relatively far from the sea. Now, I didn't ask for specifics to understand what there is about the climate there or the soil, but there are...
Well, if it's hilly and sunny, it's a good place to...
It's true, except that...
well-drained kind of soil.
The Bandol wines are considered to be very distinctive.
Right.
And I know that, and this is just for real connoisseurs, people who are interested here, the main kind of grape for the red is called the Mourvèdre.
Le quoi?
Mourvedre. Mourvèdre.
Okay.
It's specific to that region.
And that's a what?
It's a red grape.
Oh, it's a red.
It's a red grape.
It's the name of a grape.
It's the name of a grape. It's a cépage. It's the name of a grape. And it's used in the red, and it's also one of the grapes used in the rosé. It's a mix. I mean, of course, they're all mixes there. I tasted a white. I didn't feel like tasting a rosé. I don't know why exactly. But
You're a snob.
No. And you know me now. I particularly like whites, and I'm not really big on reds anymore. But it was very nice because in this big cave, which is the official cave for the Bandol wines, you can go in. They have all of the different chateaux. They have booklets. They have one on display. And you can ask, which is not the case anymore, for free, you can ask for 2 or 3 tastings. And so you get an idea of what these wines actually taste like. And I was actually surprised by the prices. Now, there were 2 or 3 that were 17, 18 euros, but they really start going up from there.
Yeah.
And part of it is because it's a fairly limited production. This is not even Burgundy, much less Bordeaux.
Yeah.
But also, they really have an excellent reputation.
Yeah.
And what I did know from long ago, from having had a friend who introduced me to them, was that they're considered to be the best rosé. Period. For those if you're really into rosés. So, but
I'm jaded enough that to me a lot of that is marketing anyway.
Well, I'm sure it is. Yeah. But the red wine is considered to be a keeper. It's not a wine to drink right away.
I see.
And it says in the booklet that it's a wine that you should keep minimum 5 years and up to 10. So it's really one of those kinds of wines. Whereas the rosé,
un vin de garde.
Un vin de garde. Yeah. And of course, rosés, no. And white wine, no either. I mean, they tell you 1 or 2 years at the most. There's no point in keeping them any longer, But what's interesting too, of course, and this has nothing to do specifically with Bandol, is that the production of rosé has tripled in the last few years because in France, everybody wants to drink rosé in the summertime. Mm-hmm. And so it was
Although
rather
I don't know
impressive.
very many people who will pay $40 for a bottle of rosé.
No. But I must say,
not I.
No, but my friend paid. Let's see. I think she paid 17 euros for a bottle of rosé.
Yeah, that's
so that's already a fair.
That's yanking my chain already for rosé. That's yanking my chain.
And she's really into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So this is the thing though. Bandol also has a casino. Which means it's a very different kind of atmosphere, okay?
Yeah.
It's not La Ciotat, which is a quaint place that used to be an industrial port that has turned into kind of a touristy, very beautiful place in terms of being along the water. It's not calm and with a beautiful beach like Saint-Cyr, and it's not the Calenques and magnificent nature of Cassis. Bandol is basically a stretch along the coast with houses built in and up into the hills because lots and lots of people have been coming south for the last 35 years, of course, but its function is more commercial. And so you have a big casino and then the strip that follows the beach, which is a very narrow beach, which doesn't go very far. You have to go further outside of the actual city of Bandol, is just a long strip of touristy type stores. As you can tell, I wasn't that impressed by it, but I was also surprised by how big it was.
The casino, you mean?
The casino and also Bandol, because I was there a number of years ago. I used to know somebody who lived in the hills above Bandol, and I had visited it several times, and I get the impression it's almost doubled in size since the last time I was there. It's really huge. And of course, these are places that it's kind of like Arizona and Florida for the States. People who are retired want to go south to the warm weather.
Yeah.
And Bandol, maybe because the wines were so famous, I don't really know. And maybe because it has a casino, like, of course, Nice does.
Some people like that.
They like that. So it has attracted an enormous population. So it is really big. I didn't expect it to be that big. But it's very famous for the casino and for the wines. And if you want a beach, I would say, go further west because there are places that are much more you can go out on these roads that take you to little beaches that are along the coast that are not really where it's densely urbanized, or to a place like Saint-Cyr. But from there, we went up into the hills to this absolutely lovely medieval village called Castellet.
Castellet tout court.
Castellet.
Pas Castellet de quelque chose.
No, Castellet with 2 L's. And it's apparently very well known as being one of these magnificent... It's kind of like Cord for here, in the sense that people know about it. Lots of people from the region go there to visit it because it's very, very beautiful.
Scenic, yeah.
It's surrounded by walls still, so there's still 2 doors, in medieval doors, the archways that you go in. It's not very big. It's got
if it's walled in, huh?
Well, it's not as big. I mean, it's not as big as Cord or some of the other places like that. You know, but it's beautiful, beautiful inside with all these magnificent old medieval houses and a small castle. Now, my guess is that since Castellet really means small castle anyway, but there are signs everywhere that explain various elements of the history of it, because it goes back to the 1100s. Actually, it was a fortified village that belonged to the Counts of Provence, and then eventually had some kind of history with war and whatever.
Something happened.
Something like that. You know, that's basically what happens to all of these. Yeah. But it's absolutely beautiful. And when you go outside of the stone walls, there are some other really beautiful houses. And the other thing that it's known for is having several wonderful restaurants. And so tasty. And so we ate in one of them. We had lunch there.
Remember the name?
It was called the Auberge, and I'm bad because I had specifically looked it up, and I have a card, and I know I was supposed to bring it, and I think it's in my bag actually.
Yes, hang on, let's go get your bag. She got the card.
I got the card. So it's a restaurant. There are several there. There are 2 that are actually really, really, really very, very expensive and gourmet. We didn't go to those. But it's a place called l'Auberge de l'Ormeau.
L'Ormeau.
On the place.
Which is a tree. Which is elm in English, actually, I think. And it's on the Place de l'Ormeau, which is really just inside when you go through the medieval gates. And it's right next to a little section where there's a view out over the hills with the grapevines and the sea. It's absolutely magnificent. And so there was this lovely covered terrace, and we had it was absolutely scrumptious. It was a fish salad with it was warm though. I was actually surprised. I didn't realize it. In other words, it was fillets of I think it was rouget, but I'm not sure. It was a fish that I love rouget. It was a fish that I love. That's very mild. Yuck.
Oh no, it's delicious. But it was cooked in garlic and olive oil. And
rouget is the fish that's full of bones.
No, but these were sections of fish that were just, there was no bones, none whatsoever. It was either, no. It was dorade. It was, but it wasn't the whole fish. It was these sections. Yeah. But it was original. It was delicious.
Yeah, dorade is a mild fish, and it doesn't have as many bones.
It's kind of like sea bass.
I'm following you there.
But it was cooked with this mix of garlic and a little bit of curry powder and something else. It was one of the specialties of the day. And it was delicious, absolutely delicious. So we were really happy, and it was lovely because it's outdoors with a bit of a canopy, and they even have a pish because it was warm, so that the water, the spray.
Oh, spray! They were spraying. Yeah, so they have these kind of fans with a spray of water.
That so you don't have to suffocate because it was really a hot day.
Yeah, eat outside is sometimes.
It was really hot. And it's a lovely, lovely village, and it's surrounded on all sides by the vineyards. And you look out and down and up and down because it's very hilly in the area, and it's just these absolutely gorgeous hills. And I guess I miss that here because we don't really have that close by in Toulouse. But all of those vineyards are vineyards of the Bandol wine.
Okay.
And in fact, at the entrance to the old part of the city, the town of Castellet, it's not a city, it's really a big village. It has also a caviste who sells Bandol wines, and they haven't yet done the grape harvest for this year, and you can see that they're laden with the fruit. It's kind of neat.
Right.
And and it's really a beautiful landscape. It's cypress trees and pine trees and grapevines. I love it. I think it's just so gorgeous. The Mediterranean vegetation. So it was really a nice day it was a lovely day to discover places that both were known and unknown. I mean, I knew, of course, I've visited Cassis, I wouldn't say many, many times, but several times.
Yeah.
I visited Bandol, but I discovered these other places, and the whole area. The light is gorgeous.
Oh, well, it's Provence.
It's Provence.
Yeah.
There are other villages that are historical villages that are up in the hills nearby. And my friend mentioned, and I really didn't do that much research about it, but she said all summer long, the various chateaux with the vineyards, they have concerts out in the fields in between the grapevines in the summer. And you can find programs by just clicking on things like, Bandol summer concerts and things like that. And
right.
she said it was really great. She'd done that several times. You have jazz music out in the vineyard, or things like that.
Cool. That's
really cool
yeah.
in the summertime.
Yeah.
So it's a lovely area, not very, very big. If you keep going, you get to Toulon.
Right.
And Toulon is it's a big city. And it's a whole story unto itself.
Right. Right.
That's just another podcast, Toulon. Yeah.
Completely, yes.
Completely another podcast.
No, but this is good because going from Marseille and east, it's kind of a discovery of the coastline along there. That's really lovely. I'm sure lots of people will be, interested in trying that.
Yeah. And so you get
really
a combination of Calenques and beach and little town.
And wine tourism and good food and all of that.
And all of that.
Sounds good to me.
It sounds very good to me. Let's go. Go back. Come on, let's go.
You're lucky you have a friend who lives there.
I am, actually, yes.
Yeah. It sounds very, it's nice.
We had a good time.
Wonderful.
And the weather was wonderful.
Well, the weather has been really good.
And there wasn't any Mistral.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, that was the only other thing, I have to say. I was just reading, I have this on one of my notes, it's like the Mistral for La Ciotat. Why Ciotat and not Cassis? I think because it's more protected. I'm not sure why. And the Mistral blows from 120 to 160 days a year.
That's a long time.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
That's a lot. And the Mistral is a cold wind.
Right.
It comes down from the north. It's relatively cold.
This is not Alaska. Okay?
It's not Alaska. No. You're absolutely right. And I should realize that when I'm listening to my friend talk about, she's lived in Marseille for a long time, but she's one of these people who thinks water that is almost 80 degrees is not quite really warm.
No, that's not right. Yeah.
So I think everything is subjective.
Yeah, everything is relative.
It's relative.
Yeah. When people ask me, is it going to be cold there? I'm like, well, where are you from?
Yeah.
If you're from Arizona or Southern California, anything is going to be cold. Like,
right?
Duh.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I'm telling you, I went into the water. It was probably 26 degrees, and I went, "Oh my God, it's so warm!" So
yeah, 26 is my lower limit. I'm happier at 28.
26, 52, 60, 72. Oh, it's over 80 degrees. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the Mediterranean gets warm.
It gets very warm.
Yeah, I mean,
by the end of the summer.
By the end of the summer, it does.
And there is a real difference, though, between the water in the little beaches in the Calenques, which never gets warm, ever. And
probably because of what, currents or something?
Well, yeah, because I think the currents are created by the formations of the cliffs, and it constantly is really pushing in and out, So it never gets as warm as it does on the long beaches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a lovely area to explore.
Sounds good to me. Thank you so much for sharing. That's really cool that you share your experience with that.
Oh, well.
This was almost like a trip report, but
it was like a trip report.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you just had a trip there.
I just had a trip there.
Yeah.
It got me so excited.
Thank you so much, Elyse.
You are quite welcome, Annie.
Au revoir.
Bye.
Join Us in France needs your support. To see all the ways you can support the show, visit joinusinfrance.com/support. Thank you, Shayna Snyder and Elizabeth I'm going to say it the French way. I don't know how to say this in English. Elizabeth Bourbon. Bourbon? No, it wouldn't be Bourbon, would it? Bourbon. You have a perfectly lovely French name, ma'am. So thank you to both of you for pledging to support the show on Patreon this week. I'm up to 137 patrons. Still far from the 200 patron goal I have by the end of the year. I'll keep plugging along. I hope more of you pledge to support the show. And I'll put out more rewards, which I think will help as well. I've been sick sick and couldn't do it, but I'm back. My thanks also to all the other patrons who support the show month after month. I love you guys. To support the show on Patreon, go to patreon.com/join us. Patreon. Join us. No slashes or dashes or anything like that. And thank you also, Laura Garcia, for your very generous one-time donation. I much appreciate that. For my personal update, well, the Dordogne tour was wonderful. I will cherish those memories forever. I got sick on the tour, but, stuff happens. And what are you going to do? At least it was bacterial bronchitis. It wasn't something that I could spread easily, so I didn't give it to anybody else as far as I know. Last night, my husband and I went to a really touching event. A local movie theater put on a concert of Jacques Brel songs recorded at 2 concert venues, a long time ago. Seeing him on the big screen and hearing those songs again was wonderful and really emotional, especially that one song called Les Vieux. Oh, that song yeah. And, it was so surprising to me that I know most of the lyric these songs by heart, and they are, for most of them, they're 60 years old, and they're still, like the classic French songs that tell something important, and they're great. Charles Aznavour also died this week, and so we've seen a lot of retrospective. I don't know how to say that. Sorry, this week. Now, he was never one of my favorites. It was my parents' favorites, that's how it works. But I think he was an amazing performer. And some of his songs are wonderful. I really like La Bohème and Emmenez-moi. Oh, Emmenez-moi is so nice. And it's also really good for practicing your French if you're into poetic and full of meaning kind of French. Next week on the podcast, to make up for skipping 2 episodes, I'll release a long episode on moving to France for young retirees. I know this is a tantalizing topic to a lot of you, and it's possible to make it happen for real, as you will see in next week's episode. And next week, I'll also release, I'm hoping, 2 Patreon rewards, so look out for those patrons. Now, at Join Us in France, we put France in your ears, and you've found a way that works for you to listen to us, which is wonderful. But to tell other people how they can listen to the show, make it simple for them. Just tell them they can search for Join Us in France on Google or on Spotify or on Apple iTunes. They can listen to it on the Amazon smart speakers. It's really getting super easy to listen to podcasts. And I'm making an effort to promote old episodes on Facebook and on Pinterest, which is new Pinterest. I'm brand new to Pinterest. I don't even understand it, but I'm trying. Almost all of what we've talked about in the past is still totally relevant to anybody visiting France soon. So it's important to show these old episodes again. And many thanks to all of you who share these episodes. And if you love Pinterest and you want to cooperate with me on some boards having to do with France, I'd love to have you send me an email. So to connect with me, email Annie@joinusinfrance.com, or you could leave a message at 1-801-806-1015. Nobody does that, but anyway, I'll keep telling you to do it. You can also ask to join the Join Us in France closed group on Facebook. When you do, please answer the questions so I know you're not a spammer. And if you add friends, which a lot of people are starting to do, which is wonderful, tell them to answer the questions, because very often you add your friends and I can see it's one of you that's added the person. The thing is, they don't answer the question because they're like, oh, somebody wants me on this group. Why? And also, if you're not somebody who participates in the group a lot, I don't know. I don't recognize your name necessarily. So I'm like, well, I'm not adding anybody that I don't know because I don't want to mess with spammers, and there's so many of them out there. Have a great week of trip planning, and I'll talk to you next week. And remember, check out addictedtofrance.com for this wonderful tour coming up. Au revoir! The Join Us in France Travel Podcast is written and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2018 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.